This video is going to focus on homework 9. There's only 2 questions, so you're doing on page 175 in the textbook exercise 9.69 and 9.70. 9.69 really wants you just to fix the score counting, so we're going to look at a few things like the counter class and the space class and try to make the counter that's within the game work correctly. And then 9.70, we're going to add some new asteroids when everything has been cleared. So it says we should start with 2, and every time they're cleared, new ones should appear. I'm going to start with 1 because I am not good at this game, and you'll see how bad I am. So the number of the asteroids isn't really that important. Okay, so that's from the textbook directly. What I normally do is there's kind of a lot of noise in these homework printouts, so I go ahead and I kind of whittle it down so I can focus on what's important. Work on these 2 exercises. We know that asteroids 3. Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna get that there. Okay, so this is important. This is what I want to focus on, right? Is this space and asteroid. No other class needs to be modified. So I understand that. And this kind of reiterates for 9.7. I mean, you can use this list if you want, but honestly, I'm going to recommend you really don't need to do that at all. So I'll get rid of that. This is good. So we don't want to put our stuff in directly in the act method of a class because that's inefficient, right? When we click that act button, every time it's gonna try to calculate stuff, and then when we hit run, it's gonna just continuously loop through and calculate. So there should be a higher score for removing the last piece. So there's probably a conditional statement somewhere that we have to modify, probably an if else or something like that. Okay, so for 6.9, we have to update the score counter. And we also have to take a look at this too, the final score. So we'll take a look at that as well. They can coexist and we can get rid of this. So I can narrow this down and have these instructions be easier to follow. At least for me it is. So this should help us get started on this assignment. I'm going to go through a quick run through of the actual game and just show you some of the functionality and what we need to fix. Let's go ahead and run this. Notice when I shoot, the score is not being updated, so that is something that we definitely need to fix. Oh, a little too far away there. Here we go. And I defeat the asteroid and nothing is happening, so this game is not very fun. Well, it's fun for about 20 seconds, and then it gets kind of boring. So let's go ahead and try to fix this. Okay, so back to the directions. We have to, for 9.69, look in the source code in the class counter and find out which method to call in order to update the current counter value. So if I go to class counter, which I conveniently have up here, I need to figure out what method I need to use. Add is going to be the likely thing that we're focusing on, right? So we're going to add our score to the target and update the counter value. So for counter, we're going to use the add method and focus on that. Over here in asteroid, we have this breakup method that we're also going to want to focus on. In the first part of this method, this is removing the object completely when the size is less than or equal to 16. So this is, when it's very, very small and it's going to be removed completely. So if it's already small, it'll just disappear. Now the other one, the else, this is when we shoot the asteroid and you see it kind of break off into 2 different pieces, having the size each time here, and then it's setting up new X and Y coordinates, and it's adding new objects to the screen, and they're moving around. So we're going to have to, somewhere in here, I'm going to use a comment, is to update the score here, right? And we're also going to have to update the score here. Eventually, based on 9.70, we're going to want to level up here. essentially we're going to have to do a check, and this will involve checks. Because we need to make sure that there are no objects left in our space. Okay, so this will make more sense once we look at the space class. So let's go over to space. So this is extending world. I put starting at 1. Like I said, I'm not good at this game, so I just want one target to shoot at first. Add asteroids. So this is where the initial add is happening. This is where the score is being displayed on the lower left hand. Initializing some stuff. This is the add asteroids. This is just the background stuff. And then look at this game over. So, you know, when I play this game and I immediately run into a rocket or do something, the scoreboard is always going to show 999 when I have the game over situation. So we're going to have to, I'm going to put a to-do here, fix this scoreboard 999. So this is just a reminder that I do have to come back and fix this eventually, because this is part of the assignment as well. Okay, so I'm back in my space class. I'm going to have to do something with counting the score here, right? So I want to update the score counter, and here you can see one of my private variables is this private counter score counter. So I do have the score counter here that I can access. So what I'll do is I'll just go to the bottom and create a method called count score. And it's going to be public void count score. And it's going to want to accept an integer value because we're going to be using this method in another class. I'm going to use my braces here. Scroll down a little bit. Now in here, since I know I have a private data member called score counter, I'm going to use that. And I'm going to call dot. And remember when we looked at counter and we saw, oh, it had this add method? Well, that's what we're going to use here. So we're going to say add. And what we're going to add to this is the score that we're passing in. So I'm just going to go and copy and paste that here. Okay, I don't know why these braces are messed up like this. Okay, so our count score is good. You should have some sort of comments here. So this method will update the score. Okay, awesome. So we'll compile it. Let's go back to our game. And let's see the score get updated. Okay, nothing happened. The score is still 0. So why is that? What is going on here? Well, did we ever actually implement this count score? And the answer, of course, is no. So my question is, where do we implement this? Where does this get implemented? If you said in asteroid somewhere, then you are correct. Remember, we put these comments here to update the score. So we're going to have to use this method, count score, over here. But how do we call it? How would we call this method? And this is a little bit tricky. So I'm going to give you a little bit of help with this. But we're calling this method from the space object, right? And in order to use a method in the space class, we need a space object. But how do we get a space object? Well, we can do something like this. Space equals space get world. Get world takes no parameters. So this will get our space object for us. And get world, remember, just gets a world. So we're actually casting it to be of type space. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Let's put in an update score here. Okay, so now we can focus on updating the score here. We've already got the hard part done up here. We've got our space object. So what we want to do here is call space dot, and our method was called count score. Go ahead and call that here. Count score is expecting some sort of integer, so I can pass in 100 here. This is for when we completely destroy the asteroid. And then space dot count score down here, and I'll make this worth 20 points. Sounds pretty respectable. So those look pretty good. Now there's obviously ways to improve upon this, like these are hard-coded values. Maybe we could make these public static final variables, something like that. I don't know if this is best used in the breakup method or we can put it somewhere else, but so remember I put in a to-do over here somewhere. To-do, fix the scoreboard worth 999 points. So I'm going to have to do something here. I'm going to have to replace this number with a call to a method of a particular object. So you will have to replace 999 with a object and then dot notation and then some sort of method call. So that's a massive hint for this one to display the final score correctly. Back in space, we're going to have to put another method in here. Something, need a level up method. And what we need to do is we need to check that no asteroids exist in the world, or the world is empty. And then, after we do that check, we have to somehow take our starting asteroids and make it one higher than the previous level. So, for instance, we start off with 1. When we go to the next level, it's going to be 2. The next level, it's going to be 3. Need to add asteroids here. And really, we need to increment first. Then we add the asteroids. So hopefully that makes sense. That should give you some help. That should give you at least a really good shot at completing the homework. The hardest part, like I said, is actually over here and realizing you need to get a space object, and the way you get that is a little bit confusing, but now that we have it, it should be pretty easy. So that's homework 9. Good luck with it. Have fun with it. And if you need help, feel free to reach out.